Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast. I am certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno, and with me as always is the one, the only, the best administrator in the world, Lauren Trolson.
Thank you, Adam. Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't hear them answer, but I hope they're having a good day, right? So we want to just get started like we always do. This week in history, Lauren, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
It's always like really cool stuff, too. It's not anything that's like, eh. So 1945, U.S. flag raised over Hiroshima, and the iconic image was captured by photographer Joe Rosenthal. And then in 1980, I'm still not born yet, but in 1980, one of my favorite moments ever, the U.S. hockey team beats the Soviet Union in the Miracle on Ice. That was crazy. I've seen the movies. I've seen the videos. Like, it is unbelievable. Just the atmosphere when you watch it was crazy. Also in 1980, the first and only Best Disco recording was given to Gloria Gaynor for I Will Survive. Yeah. And after years of disco dominating the musical landscape, the National Academy of Recording Arts and Science gave the green light for a new Grammy Award for the genre, just as the musical style was preparing to die.
Wow.
Boy, wouldn't that be great if our families that we serve knew exactly when they were going to die? We could build the perfect retirement plan then, right? I mean, that's not even a question.
Not even a question.
Yeah. So what do you got over there? Anything?
I've got a little something. Say what? Most states have a state nickname, state flower, or even a state insect, but a state smell? New Mexico legislators are considering legislation to recognize roasted chile as the official state aroma. The proposal came from a 5th grade class in New Mexico, and it goes hand in hand with the chile being New Mexico's state vegetable.
Wow. You know what? I'm in on that. I love that. I love chilies.
Yeah.
It's great. So
state aroma.
And I don't mind chilies either. You know, they give you the chips and the salsa and the unlimited. That's pretty good stuff, right?
Oh, like Chili's, the restaurant?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay.
But okay. So we get together every week and we talk about retirement. And the fun part about this is that there's no script. We're literally not looking at a script right now. So we talk about all the things that we see our families go through in retirement. Lauren, you've seen it all. I mean, we always see it all. We talk about just things that are going on in the country right now, things that we're kind of keeping an eye on, of course, and anything that we talk about, the podcast itself, you can go to tax-free Fort Myers, and you have to spell out Fort Myers, FortMyers. Go to taxfreefortmyers.com. My book is there, 2 articles for Kiplinger that I've written this last year. Any of the podcasts, everything is there. So it's kind of like your one-stop location to get everything, you know, evolution as far as it goes, right? So, and we've had a lot of great feedback over the last year since we started the podcast. It's been a lot of fun, and we enjoy ourselves. We enjoy having a little bit of fun, right, Lauren?
It's a good time. You guys should see Adam. He's got a beer in his hand and everything.
Oh, whoa. Listen, there's some things that we don't tell people here. And if you knew me at all, you would know it would be a whiskey, but that's fine. Okay, so, you know, some of the things that we talk about, and one thing that I really want to hit on today that has become a very trending topic is this idea of outliving our money in retirement. And we've heard this so many times. So many financial advisors, air quotes, always talk about outliving your money. I think, Lauren, you know, one of the biggest things here is I think inflation has kind of really brought this back into the fold, this idea of, do we have to worry about not having enough, right? And inflation being so high, I mean, last year they said 7.5% at the end of the year. I still think it was a little bit higher, and we're still there now. And we don't really have any sign of this closing out at all. We don't have any sign of this stabilizing. So, I mean, you want to speak to what you see?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I know that being a little too optimistic, hoping that our interest rates are going to go down is kind of a little out there. But
yeah, that's really tough right now to kind of think that that's going to happen, especially with the news. You know, I just saw the other day, Biden's talking about he wants to eliminate the debt ceiling. And, you know, then the nice thing about certain news organizations is they actually give you numbers when we talk about stuff like this.
Yeah.
I think the average debt per American, if we included the national debt, is per citizen is $784,000. That's insane to me.
Insane.
And you want to just eliminate this idea of having a ceiling on what we can spend, right? And I know we talk about this all the time, especially in our workshops. You know, if you look at the difference between what the government, you know, spends versus what it's bringing in, It's a huge debt, and we don't even include the debt.
Right, we don't
that.
even include the debt in
Right,
that.
so it's in the
Absolutely,
billions.
yeah.
It's in the billions already.
2.1, something like that.
Yeah, well, the debt is 31 trillion right now.
But
we know that. But
in the slide we show,
yeah, I think it's a little bit more. I think it's 20 something billion.
It's 20,
yeah, I don't know, but it just there's a huge discrepancy just in the intake of what we get. So, I know a lot of our families, and one of the things that we preach all the time is taxes. Taxes are at a discount right now. Taxes are at a discount right now. Right. We preach it, we sing it, we shout it from the mountaintops. And that's really hard to hear because everybody's gotten so used to being in this low tax environment. But, the average American, the average median income American isn't paying any taxes on their first $20,500 if they're married. Right. And then, what's left after that? If they're making another 20 grand, they're well under that 10% threshold.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. It's crazy. And what's interesting is, do you think that we could be in a position where, I thought about this the other day, what would you say if someone told you, you know what, everybody's paying 15% across the board? That's what everybody's paying.
I would say it sounds too good to be true.
It does, but I bet you would still have people complain.
Sure you would.
The reality, though, is, and when I say people, I mean politicians. The reality is that if everybody just had to pay a flat 15%, right? I mean, they'd probably take in more money.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have the multi-billionaires trying to find a way to get write-offs and stuff like that, or
You'd
Bill
have a lot
Gates
more people being able to actually pay that 15%.
And that's the reality, right? We look at it like it's such a large bite of the apple that we have to pay. We're all automatically trying to protect ourselves. I know with our families, you can see significant tax payments depending on, our average family is, 1.5 million somewhere
depending
there.
on asset level. Of course.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thing, So this idea of outliving your money, I could totally see where this is coming from right now. If we add in, 7% inflation, now the 109-year average now is about 3.28%. But every time somebody goes and has inflation worked into their portfolio, those professionals, air quotes again, are only using like the 2.4%, the last 10-year average. Well, the last 10 years, we had a pretty low level of inflation. So we're not doing any favors by looking and see where we're going to be at that time if we're not using the correct number either. So I would say, though, the majority of people that we see don't necessarily have an income problem, even though the focus in our industry has kind of shifted back to that. I would say most people that we see are going to have a tax problem.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Yeah, so that's one of the things I wanted to address today. I don't know that there's this, necessarily like, Chicken Little, the sky's falling moment with, are we going to have enough? But I know that all of our families feel very comfortable and know exactly what they're going to have, right? I mean, that's what you have to do. That's part of the job of being a private wealth manager and providing services rather than just being a financial advisor and trying to grow everybody's money. Because we say it all the time, it's not about performance anymore in retirement because all of these things come up. I mean, look, we talk on these podcasts, we talk about Medicare surcharges, we talk about taxes, we talk about income streams, we talk about everything that happens. Medicare surcharges alone, if you don't plan this out right now, you're paying 3 times more for your Medicare. Nobody talks about those issues. So this idea of running out of money, of course, you're going to have all of these things pop up, but we kind of project all of that into our illustrations and things that we run for our families and into those plans because we can't just focus on performance. I mean, what has focusing on performance gotten anybody in the last 2 years?
Well, like you've said before, if your portfolio goes down a significant amount, let's say what do you say? 10%?
Oh no, if it goes up, 30%.
30%, is that going to affect your lifestyle? But if it goes down 30%,
right.
Right.
That's the key because that can be devastating because if we're still
Absolutely.
taking money out, now we're down 30% and we're taking more money out after being down. That's rough. You're absolutely right. I do say that all the time. It's the truth too. It's just, people don't think the right way in retirement. And part of it is the other thing I say all the time. They get so used to doing it for the last 30 years the same way, right? We get very regimented. We get very accumulate our money. And then we sit back and we don't have to go to work the next day. And now the first thing we worry about is our money. And then the conversation is, oh, I'm not sure if this is enough. Maybe I should still grow some more. The reality is most of the time it is enough, but it's a different shift, right? It's a different way of being
different vision,
goal focused, right? And vision focused. Exactly. So you do listen to me once in a while. Okay. Yeah. So it's about being goal focused, right? And having our money meet goals rather than meet investment criteria. That's kind of what it's all about. So, it's just amazing to me that so many smart, intelligent people listen to these types of advisors that only talk about their investment performance, and they already know the right questions to ask, and they're asking them. And rather than getting them in the location where their investment advisor is, they're calling an attorney or calling a CPA, and then they're getting completely different advice. And then they go back to the advisor. And we say it all the time, right? We have things that these people tell us. Our families tell us things that they don't even tell their doctor sometimes, right? I mean, it's crazy. This is a very important industry that we're in, and we have to take it seriously. It has to be about more than just the returns, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
Right? What else you think, what else you want to cover? I know we talked about a few things.
We talked about that Joe Biden and that speech he made and all the incorrect numbers that he had put in there. Do you remember that? You sent me that.
Oh, yeah, Biden. Oh, boy. Well, what do we say about good old Sleepy Joe, huh?
I think he misquoted. It was like he said something about 700,000 instead of 7,000. And it was an article you had sent me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
He's done that a few times. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not right. Yeah. And, let's talk about that for a minute, because everybody loves to talk politics these days. What I'm going to say is not a shock to anybody, but all these politicians lie, right? It's not just about the lie. It's about now when you add an extra zero because you're too old and you're too befuddled to actually do the job correctly. Now we have a huge problem, right? And then they have to, it was a great article. I think I did send it to you. It was on, it was from CNN. I couldn't believe it. I haven't seen anything from that guy since. They probably fired him, for being honest. But he had all kinds of things that he was quoting and just completely wrong about. And I mean, if you're listening, you want a copy of that article, I know that we have it somewhere. We'll get that sent out to you. Just email me, Lauren. Yeah, email Lauren at evolutionretirementservices.com. We'll get that out to you. Yeah, that's true, Lauren. And the dangerous part of our country right now is there's such a divide. And it's almost like it's a divide that's based on ignorance as well, right? Social media start to run everything. So
it was a CNN Politics News, and it was fact check. Biden makes false and misleading claims in economic speech.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Yep.
That was a good article. I hope that guy didn't get fired.
Oh, gosh. Who knows? Yeah, that was very interesting. I think it says President Joe Biden delivered a Thursday speech to hail economic progress during his administration and to attack congressional Republicans for their proposals on the economy and the social safety net. Some of Biden's claims in his speech were false, misleading, or lacking critical context, though others were correct. And it said, here's the breakdown of the 14 claims CNN fact-checked.
Oh, okay. And there were a few really interesting ones.
Yeah. That I was talking about the 700,000. It says Biden says last year we funded 700,000 major construction projects. 700,000 all across America.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
From highways to airports to bridges to tunnels to broadband. And facts first. It just says here 700,000 figure is wildly inaccurate. It adds an extra 2 zeros to the correct figure Biden used in a speech last week.
So it was 70, not 700.
It was 7,000 projects. Not
7,000. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So,
that's right.
And the White House had acknowledged his misstatement. And it was just interesting. I remember you sent that to me and we wanted to just go over that a little bit.
How would you like to have that job? Like you have to go behind Biden, everything he says, and clean up everything he says to the press. How'd you like to have that job?
His PR person must be paid very well, or
you got to be paid really well. I mean, it's literally just ignorance staring right at you in the face. I mean, and not only that, obviously Trump had a real Twitter problem when he was.
Oh, absolutely.
He needed Twitter police. Obviously, we didn't get enough of those. But oh my Lord, I'm telling you. It's become a nightmare. It's become a nightmare. It's interesting because that makes me think of what Powell said the other day. He said inflation is starting to ease, but also interest rates are still likely to rise. And he also said, it's not going to be a short process to ease inflation. But, some of the direct quotes, the disinflationary process, the process of getting inflation down has begun. And it's begun in the goods sector, which is about a quarter of our economy. I'm sorry, Mr. Powell. Where is that happening? Right? I mean, I still think we're paying, what is it, $18 for eggs? I mean,
oh my gosh, it's crazy.
The goods sector, we're starting to ease inflation.
They said this Valentine's Day, don't get your wife flowers, get her eggs.
Oh,
that shows that you're willing to spend a little extra this year, Right. I saw a bunch of memes with with pictures of a guy, love and it's just a carton of eggs.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's sad when we get to that point. And I go to the grocery store now and it just makes me sad. I try not to go because it's horrible. But the other thing that he said, investors are certainly hoping that the Fed's going to halt the aggressive interest rate hikes. And that began, last year, obviously. But Powell cautioned against being too optimistic. So here's this whole problem again. In retirement, we depend on safety with some of our investments. And now we can't even look to the bond world because interest rates are going up. And we all know that when interest rates go up, bond performance goes down. So it's so hard to get a read on what we're going through. And nothing looks good on the horizon here, right? So it's really hard. Anyway, so while we're doing this, Lauren, just want to make sure we do the station identification here. So if you're listening to us, obviously on the podcast, go ahead and do us a favor, like, subscribe, follow us. Whatever it is on your, whatever you're listening to on us on, just make sure you like us or subscribe to us so that way you get the next episode. And I want to make sure I say again, taxfreefortmyers.com. If you want any additional information, we create that space so that everybody can go there. It's absolutely free. There's no cost. And you can always call us as well. I think, Lauren, sometimes people at the beginning of this thing were afraid to call us, and now we get phone calls all the time.
All day long.
We are we're very passionate about helping the public and help, especially in our area here in Southwest Florida. It's kind of been a rough year for us. I don't know if everybody heard about the hurricane and all that fun stuff, but it's been a little bit of a rough year. So anyway, definitely taxfreefortmyers.com, spell it out, FORTMYERS. And I do have my book on there as well. They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement. And there are a few common lies. Why don't we go over those 2 lies, Lauren? Have you memorized them yet? What's the first lie? The first lie when it comes to taxes, right? The first lie
taxes are going to stay the same or go down.
Right. You're not going to have to worry about taxes in retirement. Don't worry. You're not going to have an income. So the question I always ask, Lauren, and you always hear me ask, is do we spend less money in retirement then? Is that the deal? Does anybody retire hoping to live a less lifestyle than they're living now? So this idea of, where our income is going to be lower. Well, we need to get money from somewhere. If we have Social Security, we have a pension, that's great, but we're still going to need extra money, right? And when we get that extra money, most of us are going to take it from an IRA or a 401k. And when we take that chunk out, that chunk gets added to our income. So where is this Candyland magical place that we don't have to worry about taxes? And of course, one of the other lies, one of my favorite lies, and the way that we've all been trained our entire lives when it comes to our 401ks, go ahead, put as much in as you can. It's tax deferred. You won't even miss it. My favorite line, you won't even miss it. And then people come to our events and they put their $500 in their 401k that week thinking, oh, I'm not going to miss it. It's tax deferred. I don't have to worry about the taxes right now. And then it grows to the $500,000, right? And then they come and see us and said, wait a minute, I've got to pay taxes on all this when I take it out. So that's my favorite lie.
Paying taxes over time while you convert to Roth.
Yes. Okay, Lauren, I will acknowledge that comment with, if it is the right situation, if you look at your numbers, and this is what we do for our families, we show them if they kept their 401k or their IRA the same, this is what we're going to end up paying in taxes. This is what we're going to end up paying in taxes on reinvested money that we didn't need. This is what our families are going to end up paying. And it gives us a total number of all the taxes paid. And let's just say the 20% bracket, because we're conservative. It's probably going to be much higher in 2026, starting in 2020, but we'll say the 20% bracket. Then we show if we were to do conversions over time to Roth, meaning taking the IRA money, moving into a Roth and paying the taxes now rather than later, we show that doing that in chunks over time. And there is a huge difference in those $2 amounts based on what you could pay or based on if you did the conversions and what you are going to pay. And what you have to identify, and I say you, I mean every one of you listening, is you have to identify whether that number is big enough or not for you to take action. And Lauren's right. We've seen it multiple times. We've seen it with people that they were going to save 50,000 and they're like, forget it. I've seen people that were going to save 50,000 say, absolutely, I want to save that 50,000. I've seen multimillionaires who have generational wealth, who just don't care about the taxes, who say, forget it. The kids can deal with it. Right. So there's this idea of, what do we do? Should we do it? Not how do we do it? The real question is, should you do it? So to Lauren's point, yes. If you pay the taxes now, they're at a discount. We know they're at a discount. We know we're in a low tax environment. but does it make sense with the numbers? And that's what you have to identify.
Absolutely. I have another say what if we want to.
Oh, you got another say what?
I do. And this one's pretty cool. This applies to all our golfers out there.
Ooh, I love golf.
So
not really. I hate
you
golf.
got the wrong mail. Golfer Scott Stallings' invitation to compete at the Masters this year took longer than expected after it was accidentally sent to another man by the same name. Stallings said he'd been checking his mailbox 5 times a day in anticipation of receiving the green envelope when he finally received a social media message from the other Scott Stallings that read, "Hi, Scott. My name is Scott Stallings as well, and I'm from Georgia. My wife's name is Jennifer, too.
No way.
I received a FedEx today from the Masters inviting me to play in the Masters tournament April 6th through the 9th, 2023. I'm 100% sure this is not for me," not in capital letters.
So the golfer Scott Stallings was probably happy because the other Scott Stallings could have just taken that and ran with it, right? I mean, what's going to stop him from going and playing? Oh, this is Scott Stallings. Oh, that's my wife, Jennifer.
That's a bucket list trip.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Wow. So both Scott Stallings are entirely honest and good human beings. That's nice to see. I like that when that happens. That's crazy to me. That happens. Listen, I'm Adam Bruno, right? But there are a ton of Adam Brunos out there that are very nefarious versions of my name. Like I had another Adam Bruno in my hometown of Niagara Falls. This guy was in and out of prison. I used to have to give my social at places to prove that I wasn't him. Like that's crazy, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. All right. You know what? Let's talk about the Social Security policy changes because that needs to be brought up. Nearly 50 million Americans collect monthly benefits from Social Security, but the fund is expected to become insolvent in the 2030s. Understand your expected benefits and be prepared for possible cuts in benefits in the future. So this is always an interesting topic. This has been in the news a few times now, this idea of Social Security going away by as early as the 2030s. Kurt and I have our own ideas about this. The reality is, I'm not sure whether it necessarily goes away, but that money is not infinite, right? We have to be very careful with it, and we're not being careful with it. The idea to me is I'm probably going to be 80 before I can take my Social Security, or my Social Security age is going to be 76, right? So obviously we want to prepare for the worst, and it's even more of a reason to make sure that we're very intentional with our current investments because we've been so focused over the last 10 years, well, before this last 2 years, we were so focused on the performance because everybody was getting great performance in their investments at that time period. But again, if we don't start looking at this and saying, okay, we need some income goals as well. We need some ways that we can generate income. This is a prime example of why, right? And everybody always asks about stock market volatility. That's another thing. Social Security is always a big question, but stock market volatility. How many times have you heard somebody come in here and say, so what do you think the market's going to do? How are we going to?
Gosh.
And how many times have you heard me say the same thing? It doesn't matter to us what the market does because our families are prepared because we have goal-based investment strategies rather than, hey, how much can we get this year? How much can we? Our goal is to not lose anything and get compounding returns. And it doesn't matter whether the compounding returns are 5%, 7%, 8%. Over time, by not losing the money and by still continuing to get a compounding return, we're ahead of the game. And that's okay. That's all that matters. So I would tell everybody the same story. While everybody is trying to find the next magic bullet or what's this going to happen or what's the next magic stock or crypto or whatever it is, I'm in here and I'm blocking and tackling. I'm practicing the blocking and tackling, the goal-based approach to retirement. That's the important part about this. And Kurt is too. I know he is, even though we can't ever get him on one of these podcasts.
I heard you need to block and tackle a little better on your football team. But
oh, you're talking about the Buffalo Bills?
No. I meant in your Sunday football that you do with your friends.
Listen, I had an issue with the referee. Okay,
sounded like a Butterfingers situation. I don't, your buddy was in here the other day and gave us a couple insights.
Yeah. Well, listen, he throws and he hits me in the groin every time. I tell him all the time.
Then, I guess you can't do.
And I don't say groin because we're on a show now, but I say if you hit me in the groin one more time, just don't bother throwing the ball to me because it's just getting annoying at this point. And I think he does it on purpose because he's almost 50. He's got pretty good aim. We did have a little situation the other day with the referee. We get some refs out there that are, a lot older, a lot more out of shape. They're out there for, $30 a game or something reffing. And he was just awful. And, I don't mind if you're going to be awful and not call anything, but don't start calling things just because you want to get your flag out of your pants. So I ended up having a few harsh words for him, and I got thrown out of the game, and I ended up going to the car, and everybody's like, wow, you threw Bruno out of the game? Like, that was it. So this is one of those days. But listen, you got to stand up for what you believe in, Lauren. And 100%. It wasn't, and absolutely. My catching is questionable sometimes. I'm 41 years old now, and I need to have it hit me right above my head so I can catch it. And I'm a little bit of a diva. Like, don't throw the ball down the field because I'm not going to go down and chase it. Just put the ball on me, hit me in the head with the ball, and we'll call it a day. Do not hit me in the groin. But Jody is our quarterback, who you saw. He doesn't know that. Jody, start hitting me in the hands, my friend. That's all I'm asking you to do.
Jody, if you're listening.
Oh, he does listen.
Yes.
He's all into the podcast scene now. He's older too. I was really worried about doing a podcast because all of our families are older. And, the feedback we've gotten is incredible. I can't believe how many listeners we have.
It's the new radio.
I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier too, because we don't have to worry about commercials. And eventually we might, but I don't want to do that to people. That's horrible. Okay, so we covered the Social Security, the stock market. Something else that came up that we really want to talk about is the higher than expected medical costs. That's something that's been a little bit crazy. Many people miscalculate what healthcare is going to cost in retirement. Obviously, we think we're going to be on Medicare, and then of course Medicare doesn't cover anything. So then you have to decide whether you want a supplement plan or an advantage plan, blah, 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 blah. But the idea is some recommended options such as long-term care insurance or health savings accounts. Those are good options to help with those costs. Now, long-term care, if we're over the age of 60, not so much. If we're still in our 40s or 50s, there's a possibility. The only concern I have about long-term care, and people throw this out there all the time and talk about long-term care and how you should have it. If I'm 30 and I'm getting a long-term care policy and I'm paying $30 a month for it, by the time I'm 70 and I never actually need it, I haven't invested a lot of money into that. It's a good chunk, but it's not a lot. And that's the only concern I have with long-term care coverage is if somebody gets to a certain point and doesn't need it, then that money is just gone, right? It's almost like life insurance. Obviously, when you're younger, you need it and you need as much as you can get. So It should be term, right? You should buy life insurance because you're young, you have a family, you've got debts, all that stuff. But I'm not going to lose my lunch over the fact that I don't have to use my term life insurance, right? I'm glad I didn't die. I'm willing to invest a certain amount of my wealth in that. Now, the idea with long-term care, though, is we've seen families that are paying, $12,000-$15,000 a year for this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And they say somebody's going down the stairs. Somebody's using this, right? I mean, that's that's the reality. So I'm a little bit concerned about saying let's curtail medical costs by adding another huge cost like that, if that's the case. So, I do think HSAs are amazing, health savings accounts, but again, you have to be working for those. Now, health savings accounts, though, those are the only real true deal of the century there. I mean, it goes in tax-free. It comes out tax-free as long as you're using it for medical costs. So that's a huge win. What people don't realize, and maybe the younger generation and some of our families can tell their younger family members, that's a great option because you can also invest it inside the HSA. So while it grows, it's growing tax-free as well. So lots of good options there. Anyway, all right, Lauren, wrapping this up. Obviously, we covered a few things today. You want to let everybody know where to go when they need to go. When you got to go to taxfreefortmyers.com. Spell out Fort Myers, FORTMYERS, Tax Free Fort Myers, to like, follow, subscribe to our podcast. Download a complimentary copy of Adam's book, They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement, and get the latest updates in the market. And if you really want some help, if you really have questions, do not hesitate to call because you'll probably be talking to Lauren first, and she's fun to talk to, as you can tell. Anyway, Lauren, this has been a great episode. Let's wrap up this week of the Retirement Evolved podcast with Adam Bruno and the one, the only, Lauren Trulson. Stay safe, everybody. Have a blessed week, and we will talk at you soon.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities.